Well, good afternoon, everybody, or good morning or good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. My name is Paul Hardy. I am the EVP of Professional Services here at Ironside, so I run our delivery organization. I'm joined by a set of my colleagues. We are very happy to have you here. Many of us have just spent the last week in Las Vegas at reInvent. Over 70,000 people, over I don't know how many miles of shoe leather worn off of our shoes from all of the miles across multiple formats in Las Vegas along the Strip. It's truly a remarkable event to attend. But we're there to understand what the latest innovations are from Amazon in data and analytics, and that's what we're going to share with you today. So first, the obligatory commercial about Ironside. Why do I mention data and analytics? Because we are a dedicated data and analytics consultancy. We're located just outside of Boston, and we've been doing this for 25 years. And data and analytics is all that we do, so we feel like we have a terrific perspective on the industry. As this says, we have over 900 clients because we have been doing this for so long. We've been a strategic partner of AWS for 6 years. We work with multiple vendors across the entire data and analytics stack. But of course, the hyperscalers have technologies that run across that stack. And we have invested most of our time and effort with AWS because of the strength that they bring to the marketplace. That's why we were at reInvent for as long as we were. And we're thrilled to share more of that with you. What you see here in the lower right is kind of what we do in data and analytics. And this aligns with some of the conversations we'll be having today. But we run the 5 practices that you see there, starting with data strategy on the left-hand side, then including business intelligence, data science, data engineering, and managed services, where we run some of these platforms and AI applications for our clients. With me today, I have 4 of my colleagues. First, Jeff Spear. He's our practice director for data engineering and business intelligence. On his team is Austin Huminski, who is an AWS architect. And then from our data science world, Josh Engelchik, who is a senior data scientist, and our practice lead in data science, Brian Platt. Each of them will spend a little bit of time chatting with you, and I'll kick things off immediately. What I will say before we go into some of the substance of this call today is just to let you know that there's a Q&A button, of course, there on your console. Feel free to click that and enter a question at any time that you wish. We will either try to grab those in real time, depending on the topic, or we'll talk about them at the end, or you'll have the opportunity to reach out to us afterwards to answer any questions that we cannot answer for you today. So we're going to talk about our overall key messages. And then, as I said, we'll go into each of 3 different domains: data engineering, AI and machine learning, and business analytics or business intelligence, and try and give you the latest updates and announcements from AWS there. Okay, so I'm going to just give these high-level themes very quickly, then we'll get into the meat of things. But first of all, high-level theme, a generative AI strategic focus. Generative AI, of course, is the strong theme across our industry, no surprise to anyone. The amount of innovation that AWS has created in the last year, the last 18 months, has really been remarkable, and that was on full display at reInvent in Las Vegas. Really, it's gone from kind of a visionary architecture to a really pragmatic and practical platform that is growing in strength with respect to its ability to work with multimodal data, as well as to provide a set of tools, whether those are in compute or storage, to integrate all of those services in a way that allows developers to be significantly more productive and error-free. And we'll talk about some of those tool sets. But second theme here, SageMaker now an integrated experience. And this really goes with the third bullet point there as well, data and analytics orchestration. What we've seen is a blurring purposefully with AWS across the different modes of data and analytics that we just talked about. The ability to orchestrate all of these different types of services across the different domains of AI, and not just conceptually, but through an integrated platform that is now taking on that SageMaker brand name. So SageMaker will go from being, simply the ML-oriented set of tools to an overall umbrella brand across data and analytics. And this is manifest now in an extraordinary platform for developers that integrates different data types, integrates all services, and has 2 or 3 underlying themes. One is a lake house, so that all these different multimodal data formats can be viewed simultaneously. There's a theme of data zone capability being taken from the data zone product as a way to create a collaborative platform to work with all of those services and data types. And then there's the theme of Q itself, generative AI tool that is integrated into the platform, so that developers are able to be more productive, more error-free. It's a very impressive thing to behold. And again, it covers everything from the SageMaker product sets to the Bedrock product sets, the Q product sets. And in the new year, we'll also cover QuickSight, so that's actually covered all of the data analytics domains. And the last bullet point there, support for a diverse universe of data. Again, lots of data types now being added, specialty tools related to metadata, related to Apache Iceberg formats, lots of new things being brought online to, again, just make developers more productive, more integrated across these data formats. So those are sort of the high-level themes, making generative AI, real and practical for the development community. And what we'll do now is jump into levels of detail, and I will hand it off to, I think, Austin first.
Thank you, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so as Paul kind of noted, Lakehouse was one of the main announcements. And the first theme here we have for data engineering is about data integration and ETL pipelines. So before I jump into what Lakehouse is, I'm kind of try to describe what the problem was and the reason why they made Lakehouse. So as you know, if you work with AWS, you probably have a lot of different data sources with the data stored in a lot of different places. You have it in S3, you have it in databases, you have it in Redshift clusters. So there's really was a need to have some sort of method to unify all this data, because in the past you were putting together all these different type of pipelines and other workflow orchestrations that kind of have and orchestrate your data in a way that made more sense for your organization. So that's why we enter in Lakehouse. So it's kind of a combination of a data warehouse and a data lake. So you're getting the flexibility of and the openness of a data lake, but with the transaction capabilities of a data warehouse. So you don't necessarily need to worry about fragmented data across your AWS ecosystem, or you have to worry about really the query engine you're using to access the data you're trying to get more analysis on. So all this data is available underneath with the Apache Iceberg APIs, and you don't need to understand what the Iceberg APIs are. Basically, it allows you to query all the data in Lakehouse with other Iceberg compatible query engines. And you're probably already using some of these. If you're using Apache Spark, Athena, or EMR, you can automatically start querying all the data in Lakehouse already as you're used to being able to do so. You're also able to, within Lakehouse, have a one-stop shop for setting up your connections. So once you establish a connectivity to a data source, you can then share that connection with other tools in AWS, more specifically around Glue and Athena. And there's 2 ways to really get data into your data Lakehouse. So the first thing is through zero ETL operations, which is going to be like probably the easiest ways to flow data from one source into your data Lakehouse. So there's a few databases you can already get started up with getting data into Lakehouse. One with being Aurora MySQL, Postgres, RDS for MySQL, and finally what they announced here was zero ETL with DynamoDB. So if you have multiple DynamoDB tables, you can basically go into console and click a few buttons and have that data automatically flow. You don't have to do anything else to go right into the data Lakehouse. The other thing they announced here is not just for databases, but for other app integrations. So if you have other SaaS providers, specifically around, or more notable, maybe it might be Salesforce, Zendesk, or SAP, you're able to set up an integration to flow the data automatically from those services right into the Lakehouse for you to be able to start querying. So with the zero ETL ingestion, a thing I've noticed, you are bringing over and technically replicating that data from these sources into the Lakehouse. The second way to do this, and what is supported, is through query federation. So that's what's going to be in-place querying of your data sources. And the database engines that support this are going to be the popular ones like Redshift, DynamoDB, MySQL, and Postgres, and even Snowflake and Google's BigQuery are options to do the federated querying with. And really, Lakehouse is just built on top of lake formation. So all of the fine grain and tag-based access controls and security privileges you set with Lake Formation are all available, and you're able to define directly within Lakehouse. And to kind of go hand in hand with Lakehouse is SageMaker Unified Studio, which we're going to talk about a few times throughout this presentation. It's kind of a it's a separate console experience, so it's outside of the regular AWS console, and you can think of it as a one-stop shop for all your data engineering and AI needs. And specifically from the data engineering side of things, it allows you to bring all your notebooks, your query editors, and tools into one spot, so you can be able to access all your data and query your data from one unified spot. So you could query a Redshift table within Unified Studio, or you can use Athena to query your S3 buckets, all within the same console experience. The second theme we have here is about scalable storage and databases. And from my perspective, one of the top 3 announcements from re:Invent this year was the announcement of Aurora DSQL. And this is a new serverless and distributed SQL database that by default gives you active, and multi-region availability, which in the past was you had to do a lot of work to set this up and you need to make sure it was tested to make sure everything was working as expected. So you basically won't have any downtime associated with this database, and you don't have to worry about scalability. They preach that it's infinitely scalable, and you have thousands of requests per second, if not more. And a natural pairing for this seems to me with a serverless offering for a database might be using compute services with Lambda or Fargate. In the past, I think a lot of applications shoved DynamoDB as the database storage system for that application just because it offered all the things that DSQL just came out with. So now if you have a more of a relational database type of model that you want to keep with and use for your application, it's a plug and play replacement. So transferring over to the storage for around S3. So S3 has been one of the most long-lasting, stable services for Amazon since its inception. And one of the more exciting announcements that came during re:Invent was table buckets. So this is to be used for more tabular data that you store in S3. So if you have existing tabular data stored in S3, compared to your more self-managed table storage, by default, using this table storage bucket option, you're going to have a 3 times faster query performance. And even more impressive to me than that is a 10 times higher transaction per second. So infinitely, just by using this storage option, you're getting way better performance without you really having to do anything underneath. And to go along with that is S3 metadata. So this is also using the S3 table buckets hand in hand with each other and creates over 20 different type of elements for your bucket. So in particular, I think it has things like bucket name, the object key, the creation and modified date time, a lot of other things around the data that's being stored in your S3 buckets. And you're able to query all this information through other database engine type things like through Athena, for example. And the other thing to note here that is might seem small and relevant to the other things, but is pretty big improvement is DynamoDB multi-region strong consistency. So now if you have a global operation for your global application, we have DynamoDB in different regions. The second you make a write in one of those regions, it's going to be automatically replicated in those other AWS regions as well. The last theme here is for advanced data analytics, and these are kind of not as high profile announcements, but they might be very low hanging fruit wins for your organization that you can start using immediately. The first one is with OpenSearch now supports zero ETL integration with Security Lake. And Security Lake, if you're not familiar with it, is basically a way that AWS helps you centralize all your security logs and information. So things like CloudTrail, which logs every API request that happens within your AWS account, Lambda, VPC flow logs, and Security Hub, GuardDuty config, all those security related services. It aggregates all this information into one spot in a data lake. And now if you're an OpenSearch customer and you're familiar with it and you run it often, you can have that data automatically flow into OpenSearch, your OpenSearch clusters, and you can perform your queries and your dashboards on top of that. The other thing you can also note with doing this on top of Security Lake here is since the data is just residing in S3, you are to QuickSight on top of that. So if you're more familiar with QuickSight, from your BI analytics operations, you're able to create dashboards and reports on all your security information to be able to dive in and kind of analyze what's going on in your security organization more easily. Another announcement was CloudWatch Database Insights. So this just basically gives you a lot more fine-grained information that's going on with your database connections. It's giving some pre-built dashboards and recommendations for alarms. And the real, I think, highlight for this for me is they give an example of how if you're debugging a situation and maybe your application with API gateway and it's hitting a database, you can go into CloudWatch to see where the longest queries are happening, or you see like, hey, exactly where in my Aurora SQL database was this query taking so long, and helps you identify the source of that problem very quickly. And the last thing to note is the data lineage in data zone. So this is very interesting because it allows you to track and visualize kind of how data flows into your system and how it got transformed throughout the life cycle of an ETL pipeline. So you can watch how data flows from sources such as Glue and Redshift. A good example is here. It's like before you have a data producer, you can see how the data set transformed through a Glue job before it got consumed into Redshift queries. So it's a very helpful, I think, tool for debugging how data changed over time and where the source and where the source of how it came into the system and the source of where it may change throughout your system. And with that, I'll kick it over to Josh, who will go over more of the AI and machine learning announcements.
Thanks, Austin. So on my first slide here, I'm also going to touch on SageMaker Unified Studio. You're taking a multi-service integration tool here, and you're maintaining governance throughout. So now we're collaborating while maintaining security and taking what historically has been a bit of a bottleneck between data engineering teams and data science teams and turning it into a shared point of contact. So we're reducing the ETL silos. The data scientists are probably going to become a lot more appreciative of what data engineering does for them. And data engineering is going to have a better understanding of the why behind data scientists' development. So in sum, we're not sacrificing security. We're accelerating ML pipelines. And also exciting with Unified Studio is that if you're a little bit more nascent in your data science journey or data engineering journey for that matter, Amazon Q developers directly integrated into Unified Studio. So in natural language, you can cover your knowledge gaps and AWS will liaise you through that development process. Next slide here, I'm going to touch on the obvious topic du jour, Gen AI and LLMs. Upstream from every great ML project is great data. And handling diverse data types historically has proven a little bit frustrating within the realm of LLMs and Gen AI. But now with multimodal data processing in Bedrock, we're finding a solution for that problem. So firstly, we're streamlining data entry and data enrichment with intelligent document processing. Whether you've got a birth certificate that you want to derive some data from, or potentially some visual content, video or image, Bedrock's allowing you to pull that data and maintain connections within context. So you're reducing the data type silos that have historically existed in Gen AI, particularly with the development of GraphRag. So we're deriving insights seamlessly across disparate data sources. An example of this might be you're a home buyer, you've got your rap sheet on some specs for the house, but you also want to see some photos of the house to determine if, is this kitchen truly open concept as it was described in the brochure? Well, in this instance, through GraphRag, you can inform these questions with your disparate data sources, both text and visual. And you can also supplement Gen AI workflows with structured data. There's no shame in plugging in tabular data to a Gen AI workflow as well. It doesn't have to purely be unstructured in the form of text or in the form of visual content. If you have rows of data that answer the question, well, we can now pull that data in as well. Now, Gen AI workflows are typically expensive, both in terms of manual labor and compute costs. So on the next slide here, some really interesting things we're seeing from the manual labor of evaluation is prompt routing and prompt caching. So typically the LLM workflow involves building your prompts, building your underlying sources of text data or visual data, and trying to determine upon which models do certain contexts and certain questions perform best. Well, with prompt routing and prompt caching, AWS Bedrock is offloading your simplest questions to simpler models, routing your more complex questions to more complex models. And with prompt caching, if you're always asking the same questions within a particular context, you're not doing duplicative inference. You're alleviating compute cost in that regard. Amazon Nova Model Suite is really interesting, and it ties into the idea of multimodal data. AWS has now built foundation models that are specific to certain data type applications. Model distillation is something I find very exciting, in which you have two similar models, but one that's more complex, it's got more parameters under the hood, a teacher model, as we're calling it, and a student model, slightly less complex, but contextually relevant to the question you're trying to ask. You can take your initial prompts, feed it to the teacher network. That teacher network will generate some output that then is used to train the student model. So when it comes time for inference on the lower right-hand side of the visual here, we're getting lower latency, but high accuracy, really that sweet spot of compute cost and accuracy. And then lastly, as far as some emerging frameworks we're seeing on this next slide here. RAG evaluation is something that I think every data scientist that's been working with LLMs of late is really excited about, because you're alleviating that manual legwork. You can now feed your corpus of text directly to AWS, select models for which you want to train, and Bedrock is going to do a RAG evaluation for you. It's going to tell you how useful the data you fed it is for a particular question you're trying to answer, and what sort of accuracy you might expect. Multi-agentic AI is very exciting, because it's a step in the right direction of this idea of AI singularity. You know, all of your day-to-day tasks are now offloaded to an intelligent AI agent who has context-specific intelligence. So on the lower left hand of the pictures here I've got on the bottom bar, if you're, for example, a social media campaign manager, you might want some content strategy input from one agent, and you might want some engagement prediction foresight from a separate agent. Both of these two agents are now feeding into one singular, albeit multi-step complex workflow. And then, of course, everyone's got healthy skepticism about the output that's generated from LLMs. Hallucination is definitely a buzzword du jour, but with guardrails that you can build into AWS Bedrock, you can generate automated reasoning checks so that you have confidence in what output was generated, why it was generated, and from where it derived its information. With that being said, I'm going to take things in the direction of business users and business analytics and hand it off to Brian.
All right, thanks, Josh. Yeah, so I'm going to talk more about the Gen AI, right? And in this case, we really want to talk about Q, and Amazon Q is an AI service on Amazon that is not a model that you have to train. It is an LLM and an AI that is there to assist you in actually working on AWS. Is one of the main uses for it. So that's going to be developers on AWS. It's going to be analysts who are looking at data, and administrators, who might be looking at logs. Will find that Q is part of their workflow and is available to them as an AI assistant in sort of their regular daily activities. The big one that I think has gotten the most traction and a lot of attention is Q Developer. That's been out for a little while now to assist in the writing of code. And if you're writing code for an API, if you're writing code for database or whatever that you need to write on Amazon, Q Developer can help you out with that. What's new is the ability to have Q actually write documentation for you, produce information about the workflow in the code. That can help you both quicken your time of developing code and writing documentation about, as well as document code that may be dropped in your lap and now you've got to figure out what it does. Q can help you do that. Q also can perform code reviews and act in the role of a code reviewer to help you write better code. And again, just adding the efficiency, having AI take over roles that you previously required a person to look at. Now you can have the AI do that. One of the other interesting applications is investigating logs. You've got CloudWatch logs for everything that's going on, and this is where the administrators might find that AI is part of their workflow now, is that Q is now able to look at Amazon logs and identify anomalies, identify potential issues, potential improvements, and sort of generally forensics on those logs. And that's something that the AI can do very well and at scale in a way that a human can't. So again, it's this theme of AI coming in and being part of what you do. And in this case, it's really as you build solutions, AI can help you build the solutions. Additionally, Q also can help you, in those solutions. And where we're seeing that show up is in QuickSight, that both Amazon Q and QuickSight and Amazon Q Business are now becoming more integrated. They're able to work with more data. Again, the ability to work with additional data, multimodal data is a theme. Q is also benefiting from that and able to now work with visual data for the Q Business, and that closer integration with QuickSight. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more on the next slide, with QuickSight. So QuickSight, has been around for a long time. It's a very capable BI platform. They are constantly adding features to it, so it's increasingly competitive and it's differentiated. It's very tightly integrated with a lot of your AWS solutions and any of the AWS services, and you can look at and use it as a BI front end for that. But it also has the ability to connect through all various connectors to different SaaS platforms that you might have and data sources that you might have in your organization. So it is a very capable tool. It's very easy to use. The kind of in addition to sort of just new core BI features that have been added, which, helps the authoring and the visualization, interactivity, there is this capability to do natural language querying. That means you instead of having to write an SQL query to pull a report, to pull some kind of data for your business analytics, you can actually just ask a question. What were the sales last year? What were the top seller in my organization? What's our profit margins? And just ask literally in English language questions and have the AI interpret those, turn those into SQL, pull the data for you, and actually produce visuals for you. So what would have been the work of an analyst and an SQL expert and somebody who wants those reports can now all just be done at a prompt with the AI helping you out do that. And that's again just how the AI gets integrated in. A big announcement around this is this scenarios. And scenarios is this new capability that's been introduced to guide you through more than just a single question, but in fact a whole data analysis, and to actually assist you in pulling together the right data, to pulling together the right kinds of questions. So if you're going to do some kind of regression analysis for trends, what kind of data do you need to pull together? Well, the AI can actually help you and guide you and pull those data out of your warehouse and put together the analysis with you just asking it questions along the way. So that's a really ambitious and impressive capability. It's leveraging the agentic AI that was mentioned earlier. So you can kind of see it in action here and put it to use in the QuickSight scenario. And as mentioned before, the ability to pull in additional data beyond just your structured data in your warehouse, all of that unstructured data, your past annual reports, your guides, your materials, your PDF documents, those are now all available as Q Business and Q and QuickSight are, additionally integrated to get you both the AI capability around structured data as well as the AI capability around unstructured data. So continue to watch QuickSight. It's a very interesting platform where a lot of AI technology is really very rapidly increasing the capability and usability of the tool, and I'd encourage folks to check it out. There's a lot of very interesting capability being built in now. And I think that's all for this, and I'm going to hand it off the summary to Paul again to close us up here.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for my Ironside colleagues. As you can see, our data engineers and data scientists are very excited about these capabilities. In a nutshell, from Amazon, great innovation, access to more AI services and functionality across more data sets, more efficiently and easily in SageMaker Unified Studio. So we're looking forward to the productivity and cost savings it's going to bring to us as a development community, as well as to obviously our clients, and beyond the practical matters of it. The fact that there are more and better applications of Gen AI means there's going to be more and better business outcomes for our clients. So we're very excited about that. As you can see here, we're very happy to talk to you in greater detail about any of the things that we've learned at the reInvent. You can scan this QR code or reach us on the email address that is cited there. We do have a set of links that we have developed for the various announcements that you've seen here today, even though we've distilled them down. If you would like to get behind that and see more detail, we will provide you with these slides, including a link to many of those announcements within the AWS community.
With that, I think we just say thank you and have a great day.
Thank you all. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.